Say what you will about the Snyderverse, but this moment, it's pretty visually impressive.
We, as a population on this planet, have been looking for a savior. 90% of people believe in a higher power.
But it isn't something that, made an indelible mark on culture, is it? In the course of watching Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, it just kind of slides by you. It's not an image that really, sustains. But why? It's dramatic, it's striking, and it does a good job of juxtaposing the unfathomable might of the Man of Steel against the ethical and political implications of his existence on Earth. It's one of the coolest sequences in the whole movie. But even if you watched the film, even if you liked it, you're being reminded of this scene right now for the first time in years, aren't you? It didn't stick with you. When was the last time you saw a superhero film and it had visually arresting moments? Not like cool or even a memorable moment. Those happen all the time, but something truly iconic, something that transcends the lexicon of the film and generates waves in the wider culture. Spoofs or parodies or even imitations in external media. When was the last time you saw something like Neo dodging bullets? Yeah, it's not that easy to think of something like that, is it? But why? Are modern movies just visually bland? Or is there a larger reason? I'd argue that there are three story junctures that are breeding grounds for iconic moments and visuals. These are character introduction scenes, second act low point scenes, and third act climax scenes. Basically, when a character is introduced, when they're at their lowest, or when the character overcomes the main adversary of the film. Sure, there can be others, but it's usually one of these three that has the biggest chance of making something visually impressive that also carries emotional weight. And it's these two factors that create a springboard for creating a cultural phenomena. As far as introductions go, I don't know if anyone can name one that's more iconic than Blade's blood rave scene. It tells you everything you need to know about the world, Blade's context within it, and how it's different from our world, i.e., there's vampires in it.
Jesus, that's him. It's the Daywalker.
The visuals of this scene are doing multiple things at once. They're telling you Blade is unlike anyone else visually because he's not covered in blood. They're telling you he's cool, he's being shot from a low angle and oh man. And also they're setting up the antagonists of this world, the vampires. I know this seems like I'm probably being pedantic, but that's kind of the point here. This incredibly simple idea of showcasing the introduction visually just doesn't happen now. Every Marvel or DC movie opens with an exposition dump of a character telling you the story thus far. When was the last time you got a Nightcrawler in the White House in X2 or something else visually oriented as a cold open? They just don't really happen anymore. It's kind of surreal. Part of this is due to the postmodern idea that we already know these characters. Spider-Man is a perfect example of this. The MCU's Spider-Man movies made the editorial decision to skip Peter Parker's origin story, since we'd seen it twice before in the films that hadn't even come out that long ago. And also because they wanted to plug the character into the larger ongoing MCU Phase 3 storyline. And it probably felt like a step backwards to have Spidey cameo in Civil War during the tarmac fight, and then rewind to a time before he got his powers in Homecoming. This makes a lot of sense, and people were generally on board with it. But in its place, we just got nothing. Worse than nothing. Spider-Man Homecoming replaces any attempt to make a, truly iconic Spider-Man character moment with just a cutesy pastiche of iconic 1980s teen comedies. The movie borrows iconic moments from other movies to serve as grounding markers for the characters instead of creating its own, which makes it entertaining and fun, but not culturally impactful. Sure, we don't need Peter Parker's origin again, but on the other hand, literally nothing can be as iconic as watching Spider-Man web-sling through New York City for just the first time. And we just literally don't have any of that for Tom Holland's version of the character. Another reason why Blade's intro is so effective is that there's no jokes, no quips, or postmodern acknowledgement that vampires aren't real. The filmmaking in this scene is earnest, and it's direct, and it's sincere, and it's attempting to tell the story at hand, which creates Tracy Lords, sprinklers, and that one techno song that goes Marvel pioneered the iconic jokey tone that has propelled their films to the top of the box office for well over a decade. And they accomplished this by making their films visually bland, cookie cutter, and uniform. A lot has been said about how all of these movies are, cool tones, grays and blues. They're not typically produced with any significant visual directorial panache. Sure, Fantastic Four: First Steps really tried to make these things look visually distinct, and it succeeded for the most part. But I challenge you to name a single shot or sequence that's truly visually arresting in that movie. That's just not what those movies are doing. Even Doctor Strange, they're pretty inventive with the whole hexagonal, geometric, universe-bending Inception influence visual thing. But it's nowhere near as iconic as the thing it's drawing from, Inception. That movie, whatever you thought of it, created moments that actually punched through into the greater conversation and were parodied and dissected and emulated by Doctor Strange. Come to think of it, when was the last time that we had a truly visually striking movie that, turned the medium of film on its head? Sure, we all know about The Matrix, bullet time, slow motion, Eastern action choreography taught to Western actors. It's a tour de force, and one the Wachowskis haven't been able to kind of evolve past since. But is there something else? It kind of doesn't feel like it. More so, it kind of doesn't even feel like we're living in a time where movies can make iconic images anymore. Things like Top Gun, Empire Strikes Back, Jaws, Tim Burton's Batman, Jurassic Park, or even Seven, or The Godfather 2, or Back to the Future. They all feature imagery that feels like it reverberates throughout culture. The Marvel machine feels like it has character costumes that are ubiquitous through licensing deals, but it's a completely different thing. Here's a simple yet damning reason why this problem could be happening. Most superhero movies that are produced today aren't made about characters' irrevocable emotional journeys. Therefore, the introduction, second act low point, and third act climax don't really have to be emotionally heightened to the degree that would generally produce an iconic image. So when was the last time the Marvel Cinematic Universe birthed an actually iconic visual? Endgame? Probably? The moment when everyone comes through the portals and Sam Wilson says, "On your left." It's a joyous connection of multiple film franchises all colliding into one another in a battle so large that you can't help but have a grin from ear to ear. But the actual mechanics of the fighting and the visuals, they don't actually burrow that deep into your mind. Can you name a specific moment? Maybe like Spidey playing keep away with Thanos' gauntlet? Is that it? Do you think you could name anything that happened in this fight other than Captain America saying Avengers Assemble? Everything that happens in this fight is super fun. It's a great sequence. I'm not knocking it at all. It's honestly jaw-dropping that they made it work to the degree that they did. The visuals of this scene are, they're kind of brown and gray, and the crowd-pleasing beats aren't necessarily iconic visuals. They're designed to make people freak out and clap in a theater, but not walk away thinking about anything deeper. How would you even make a parody of this fight sequence? A truly iconic moment, like The Matrix's bullet dodge scene, needs to be so well put together that you can simplify it and make it silly. What moment in a film in the last 15 years has truly been something that's escaped into the broader culture and announced itself as something to be remembered? It's pretty hard to come up with them. Get Out and The Sunken Place, or I don't know, maybe The Doof Warrior in Fury Road? But that doesn't feel right. I think a large component of this is the fact that both Marvel and DC use quippy humor to undercut these sincere moments. The characters are either acknowledging the coolness or undercutting this sincerity with a joke as the events are unfolding. They don't let Captain America lifting Mjolnir be its own moment. Thor immediately undercuts it with a quip saying, "I knew it." Going back to Fantastic Four, one of the moments that was big enough to be featured in the trailer for the film showed Johnny trying to coax Ben Grimm into saying his iconic catchphrase of, "It's clobbering time," with Grimm refusing because it's so corny. You know what's way cooler and more iconic than this wink wink, nudge nudge, jokey moment poking fun at the supposed corniness of the movie's source material? The thing just saying it's clobbering time. Similarly, with James Gunn's 2025 Superman film, the last son of Krypton is not introduced in a way that's really selling you on the fact that he's this majestic being from another world. It's more a meta commentary acknowledging how Superman might have been mistreated over the past few years. Gunn's film opens with Superman flying through the air, smashing into the ground, and then having a back and forth with his dog, Krypto, before being dragged back to the Fortress of Solitude, where he's eventually repaired by his Superman robots. I'm not saying that this is even a bad way to introduce the character, but it objectively is not making an indelible image. Similarly, the second act low point is the character's best beat for any Superman movie in recent memory. It's where Pa Kent gives him a pep talk after this whole Kryptonian message thing has turned the people of Metropolis against him. It's a great scene, but is it really that visually arresting that it elevates itself outside of the film and into the greater meta of culture? I don't know. You know what is visually arresting? Oozing with memorable moments, even if you've only watched the movie once? The moment in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, where Spidey saves a crowd of people on a runaway subway car by perching on the front of it, shooting his webs onto the buildings on either side, and then holding on until the train slowly comes to a stop. Then he's carried into the train, collapsed from exhaustion. When his mask falls off, the people decide to put it back on and keep his secret identity. "He's just a kid, no older than my son," one of them says. So many iconic moments packed into one scene that never leaves your memory. Gunn's Superman movie seems more interested in rewriting the core of the character back to what it was pre-grim and gritty Snyder. A hopeful, optimistic, and caring individual who values kindness and justice over scowling and punching. Yes, take me to there. But I don't know that the Superman movie really reinvented the wheel or gave us anything specifically visual to write home about. If you like James Gunn's movies, you'll like this. But if you don't, it's also probably not necessarily for you. Part of the problem with movies today, counterintuitively, is that we can do anything. Like literally anything. Almost detrimentally so. Thanks to innovations in computer-generated imagery and the inevitable march of artificially generated large language model-fueled video capture engines, anything anyone has ever dreamed up can be remixed, remastered, and output as a new and slightly refreshed iteration of itself. If you had told me at 15 years old that the status quo of ubiquity of superhero films and high-flying adventure stories would take over the world and the box office to this degree, I'd be nothing short of thrilled. But too much of a good thing can objectively be too much of a good thing. Art is defined by the canvas, and artists are defined by the canvas's size, meaning restrictions, while inconvenient and frustrating, can be essential in producing inventive work. Prior to the implications of bullet time, the Wachowskis had no idea how they were going to pull off this idea of separating a camera from space and time. Initially, they were going to use a rocket strapped to a camera. Needless to say, that didn't really work out. That being said, this kind of hell-bent on change mindset is what we need. This type of crazy is how you get new and exciting images. But it doesn't take something that is wildly inventive either. Think about the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I don't think anyone really views this movie as a groundbreaking touchstone or cinematic masterpiece. It was a cash-in on a toy craze at the end of the day. But almost every sequence in the film feels iconic. From the humor that organically is derived from the characters to the shadowy depths of the sewers, or Raphael screaming at the top of his lungs off of a barn. Everything in the movie is slightly too mature for its audience, and therefore able to cut deeper into the core of the monoculture. It's so simple in its construction, but you can tell that the director put special focus on adding at least one cool or iconic visual moment in every single scene. And because each scene is built this way, you can retell the entire plot of the film from memory. because every plot beat is built on a foundation of something that's visually arresting. Just take the introduction of the characters, for example. We're in a dingy New York City sewer. The camera tracks along, focusing on the grime-encrusted pipes and crumbling brick walls, slick with filth. This is already a visually arresting image because it's something that we're not used to seeing. It's an environment that's foreign to us. We're especially not used to seeing heroic characters inhabiting this space. Then, when they're introduced and the characters are literally depicted just as their silhouettes, that's the first thing we see. The shadows of the turtles as they come around the corner. We get a glimpse of their odd turtle-shaped heads and the bulkiness of their shells. The way the sleek angles of their weaponry plays off the roundness of their features. We have yet to actually see the turtle costumes in their entirety, in full light. So we're on the edge of our seats waiting to get a glimpse. This anticipation makes our first look at the turtles all that much more memorable. One of the silhouettes jumps into the air and we freeze frame as the iconic TMNT logo racks onto the screen and the theme explodes into a refrain. We know everything we need to know about these characters just from this intro. There's nothing like this in any of the MCU movies, except maybe the first Iron Man movie where Tony Stark escapes from the cave in his Mach 1 suit. You know, before they decided they should develop a homogenized house style across every movie. But you know what superhero film does have some iconic visuals that have escaped into the larger cultural parade, or just generally are frequently referenced in our culture now? Into the Snyderverse. That moment where Miles Morales is jumping off of the skyscraper and flipping upside down and then dive bombing into New York. That's iconic. I've seen it parodied and emulated countless times. I think that fits the bill pretty well. And wouldn't you know it, the moment comes from the film's third act, where Miles Morales is finally embracing becoming a hero. He's discarded his street clothes, and he's fully wearing his spandex costume. It's an exuberant exaltation of what it means to be both a teenager and a superhero at the same time. It's a moment that works both within the narrative and externally. We thrill at watching Miles Morales embrace his powers, just as Miles thrills at learning how to use his powers. It's a full circle moment, which is exactly what a Spider-Man film should do. That's a moment that literally zero of the MCU Spider-Man movies have ever even gotten close to. Sure, there's loads of great web slinging across all the films, but the symbolism and poignancy and narrative potency of this moment has never been captured in a live-action Spider-Man movie. That's a shame. A key element of why these problems are so ubiquitous is the fact that these big-budget summer blockbuster films are often greenlit well before finished scripts and directors are even on board. They have internal teams of people that are cobbling together sequences that everyone agrees will be in the final film and will be more than likely years in the making to complete. You can't tie a character climax to a single fight scene because that climax and character motivation might change depending on the director and the scheduled rewrites or a million other factors. A key example being the sequence in Superman Returns where Supes saves the plane from crashing into the baseball stadium. That was designed for the McG version of Superman that was going to be put into production a good decade before Returns even got the green light. Kind of puts this into some perspective, doesn't it? In conclusion, look, this issue persists, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Iconic visuals are derived from emotions and a story trying to relay those emotions. If we don't fully embrace the underlying emotion and have these visuals either support or evolve out of those sequences, I don't know, nothing's going to escape into larger culture. And that's the end goal of making art, right? It's about producing work that affects people and inspires them, moves them to want to make their own work. Oh wait, maybe that's not the end goal of the MCU or the DCU. Maybe their continued goal is to generate profits for their corporate owners. Maybe. Are we asking too much of these characters? No, I don't think so. I mean, is it literally true? Yes, but existentially, that's nihilist, and I refuse to let that side of things win. These films are still being made by people and artists, and they're still saying something. Film arguably is the greatest medium in the history of mankind. It's the summation of all of our collective works. And sure, are there situations where the business of film wins out at the end of the day? Yeah, of course. It's a business. But like Saul Bass once said,
I want to make beautiful things, even if nobody cares.